everyone, it's Christy, and I'm so excited to be back with you at the My Favorite Things YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be making a card using the new Bertie Brown set, Sunshine and Friendship, and I have stamped the images that I'll be using on some Copic friendly cardstock, and I'm coloring with my Copic markers today. So I'm starting with my orangutan, and I've got to say, out of all the adorable images in this set, he has got to be my favorite. I just love his expression and the way that his body movement has been illustrated. He is just too cute. So I'm using E00 and E11 for the skin. I started with the E11 and drew in all my shadows, and then I'm blending out with the E00. I also decided to add a patch of skin to his belly. I just thought that would be a fun detail. So I drew that in with the E11 as well and blended that out. For the orangutan's fur, I used E13, E15, E17, and E19. Since he's an extra large image, I decided to add in an extra fourth marker shade and just help me get to the level of contrast that I was looking for. So I started with the E19 and laid those shadows in wherever I felt that the sun wouldn't hit, and then I blended down in the reverse order from darkest to lightest. So I used that E13 just mainly on his upper arms where they would be in the most sun, and also around his belly to help it blend with that E11 that I used to create that. For the sloth, I'm using E40, E41, E43, E44, and E47. I used the E40 and E41 to do his face, and then added just a touch of the E43 right on the outside edges to just make them a little bit darker. I also used the E40 and E41 to add a little bit of color to the white parts of my tiger, so right on the top of his nose and at the top of his belly, blending downward. Then I'm going to use the E41, E43, and E44 to color in the rest of his fur. So I'm just going over each of those colors from darkest to lightest, starting on the outside edges and blending toward the center of his body. And then for the patches around his eyes, I'm going to use E47 as my darkest, and then I'm going to pull towards the center with the E44 and use a little bit of E43 right over his eyes so that you can see them well. And then I use the E47 for his fingernails, and I did use a dab of that for the orangutan's nose as well. For the rest of my tiger's body, I'm using YR01, YR04, and YR02. I use the YR04 on the left side of his body since he's facing right. I decided to make his back the darkest, and then I'm blending forward towards his face and belly with the YR02 and finishing up with a little bit of YR01 right around his belly and his ears. So the inner tubes is where I'm going to take the opportunity to add some bright pops of color. For the sloths, I'm using Y13, Y15, and Y17. And I also used the Y15 to color in the centers of my flowers. I used BG45 and BG49 to color in the tiger's inner tube. Since I love orange and blue together, I thought that would be a good color for him. And the great big orangutan is going to get a bright pink inner tube because I just thought that would be fun. So I used RV13, RV14, and RV17 for that. And then I also took the RV14 and colored just the edges of my flowers with that. I colored in all of the leaves with YG05, YG07, and YG09, and then I trimmed all the images out with the matching dies. For my background, I've taken a piece of Bristol Smooth Surface cardstock and trimmed that in half with the Hit the Slopes Die-namics, and I'm going to work on just the bottom half first. I'm using some broken china and peacock feathers distress ink, and I'm going to make this part into my river. So I'm taking a wide brush and I added a little bit of water to that just to help the color flow, and then I'm going to spread on my ink and continue adding water. I want to leave it a little bit streaky because I am making a river and I want it to look like flowing water. So I'm just going to go back and forth on that until I'm happy with it. Once I am, I will set that piece aside to dry and clean up my work surface so that I can work on the top portion, and that is going to be my jungle. I'm using Twisted Citron, Mowed Lawn, and Lucky Clover, and I had a little bit of blue in my paintbrush still, and so I just wanted to dab that up with a paper towel. So I'm going to continue to blend these colors on there again until I'm happy with it. I just want something really abstract so that it looks like green foliage in the background. So I'm also going to dab the ink in kind of a random pattern and continue building that color. I did dry this with a heat tool a couple of times in between and just continued working until I had a level of contrast that I was happy with. I also decided to add a bit more interest by flicking on each of those colors and getting that little bit of dot detail, and then I will set this panel aside to dry as well. Before I do any assembly, I want to stamp my sentiment on the bottom of the river portion, and I'm using the one that says, "I hope your birthday is a splash," and I stamped that down twice in a teal ink so that I had a good impression. Then I'm going to set that aside once again and pop in my card base so that I can do some stamping on the inside. I just like to finish off my cards that way. And I chose another sentiment, the one that says "It's time for sunshine and friendship," and two more of the images included in this set. I wanted to use as many as possible because they're all just so cute, but only so many would fit on the front of the card. I adhered my watercolor panels to the front of my card and then added two of the Icebergs Die-namics that I trimmed out of gravel gray cardstock and embellished with a warm gray Copic. And I stuck those down in the middle of the river so they could be rock outcroppings. And my idea was to have the orangutan leaping off the largest one, getting ready to do kind of a cannonball into the river, and his friends, the tiger and the sloth, are just lazily floating downstream. So I'm just adhering those with some liquid glue and using an acrylic block to help press them down into place. And to help it look more like a jungle rainforest scene, I decided to add some of these leaves and flowers to the top edge of the card. So I'm just adhering those down with some liquid glue as well. So I just did one of the leaves or the ferns and one flower over on the left since there's not quite as much room with the orangutan being over there, and then in the right hand corner there was a lot more space, so I decided to embellish that a little bit more with the extra large leaf there and another of the flowers and ferns. And I did decide to tuck that flower behind the orangutan so it would look like he was out in front. The last flower I'm going to add right next to the sentiment to just help accentuate that a little bit and draw your eye down there as well. As a finishing touch, I'm going to take a white gel pen and add a few shine marks to all of the inner tubes. So I'm just following the top curve where the sun would be hitting that and creating that shine. So I did it on all three of those, just did some lines and some dots to add some fun detail. And that is going to finish up my card for today. So I'll give you guys a little closer look at that detail and another peek at the inside. I hope you guys have enjoyed the July edition of Christy Gets Crafty with my favorite things. If you did, please be sure to give the video a thumbs up, and you can leave me a comment down below. I always love to read your feedback. Subscribe to My Favorite Things for more inspiring videos just like these here on screen. Bye-bye!